Hi, everybody. Tom Van Hoy with Pitt State head track and field coach Russ Jewett on this edition of the PSU Track and Field Insider Show. Outdoor season underway. Began last weekend for Pitt State. Men and women's teams home, Carney Smith Stadium. Wendy's PSU Invitational. Pitt State men, two-time defending MIAA outdoor champion, and picked to win the outdoor championship again this year in the coaches' preseason poll. And the PSU men coming off the indoor championship as well. Started with 6 individual winners last weekend, including 2 by Bo Farrow in the discus and shot put, both provisional qualifying throws. Several other Pitt State men with strong starts as well. Meantime, the Pitt State women 4 individual winners last weekend as well, including Emmeline Dearman in the heptathlon, 4,917 points, third best qualifying time in Division II. There were successes on the track and in the field as well for the Pitt State women. The Pitt State women picked 4th in the MIAA preseason coaches poll this year. Here's Russ Jewett on the performance of his women's team in meet number 1.
I thought our women's team performed fairly well. I was overall happy with the way they prepared and focused. A couple glitches here and there with the women's team, but I think we were fairly ready to come out and compete. And, of course, the first outdoor meet, even though you've been training, most of these kids have been training and competing through the indoor season. It's still a little different animal. But I was pretty pleased.
Do you ever worry about, you probably always do, but your athletes getting hurt, but first time outdoors?
Actually, we do, and we talk about that as a staff, what we can do to prevent that. Some of that is minimizing the number of events each kid is in or what event each kid is in, but certainly mostly it's just tuning in to each athlete and making them communicate and just being cautious.
Well, this is maybe an obvious question, but you've done this a long time. Do you have a plan for each individual student athlete, and has it differed over the years as you've been a head coach as you approach the outdoor season?
Well, I've probably changed a little bit over the years, more to the point that we do individualize things as much as we can and still keep very much a team atmosphere and a team attitude. But, the philosophy is to get each student athlete to be the best they can be, and collectively you have the best team as long as you do things to create unity and, cohesiveness.
Yeah, I kind of asked that because I said you like have a file folder, as if you still have file folders with the digital technology today. But like 1987, on the third day after the first meet, this is what I had the 1,500-meter people do. Anything like that?
Well, sort of, yeah. We do keep records of all of our training, and, we progress over the years. I guess you'd call it progress. Sometimes I wonder. We don't change just for change's sake, but of course all of us coaches, we want to be students of the sport still, and I'm still learning about the events that I coach, and so are the other assistant coaches. But we try to keep some continuity from year to year. If you make wholesale changes one year to the next, very frequently, then I think you lose your kids a little bit. But, there's different ways to crack that egg, I guess you'd say. If you look at if you pick the 5 best distance coaches in the country and you look at exactly what they do, you're going to see some pretty stark differences. The basics, though, science is still science, and the basics are pretty similar. So we just try and follow science.
How much does it change based on specific athletes? I mean, are your distance runners all the same? You have them all do the same stuff?
Now, that's a great question, and in the distances, particularly that group I consider to be 800, 1,500 steeplechase, which is a 2-mile race, 5,000 meters, which is 3 miles, and 10,000, which is about 6 miles. Pretty different physiological needs from 800 meters, 2 laps around the track, to 10,000 meters, 25 laps around the track. So those kids are called a subgroup of middle distance, but the guys that are specializing in 800 are doing quite different training than the guys who are specializing in 10,000 meters.
You mentioned a moment ago what you coach. Tell us about what you coach and what your assistant coaches do for you as well.
Well, I coach all the distance runners and middle distance runners. Of course, that's cross country in the fall. I also coach the hurdlers, and I have the 4x100 under my wing. I don't coach the sprints, but I like that relay. I like to stay in touch with the relay, so I coach that. Coach Matt Brown coaches the long jump, the triple jump, and the sprints. Of course, Coach Mantooth coaches all of the throws. And Coach Rutledge coaches the pole vault and the combined event athletes. That's the decathlon, heptathlon athletes, and then, of course, the high jump. And we have Kiara Jones, who helps us. He's not here every day, but he's just a recent graduate, and he helps us in the horizontal jumps as well. And then Ben Lotz helps us in the day-to-day with the distance runners.
I mean, they're all tough in their own respect, but I mean, I go back to standing down there on the track one day at Florida State and 110 highs. I'm going, really? I mean, how in the world? And then you look at it, and I remember being at Emporia that one day when Brian Moorman was running for you, going, man, that's pretty amazing stuff. How difficult is that race? And I don't know if you can make a decision on what the toughest race is, but how about the 400-meter hurdles as well? How about those two races?
Well, the hurdles races are unique. Sprinting, but you get interrupted. Yeah, the 110 hurdles for the men, that hurdle is 42 inches tall. And for a person 6 feet tall, that comes up to about your belly button. It's a challenging race, more with timing and maybe tunnel vision. You can't get distracted by the athletes around you. 400 hurdles is a more physically demanding race without question. You just hurt more, and you still have to get over those hurdles. And then I would there's one more hurdle race you didn't mention, and that is the steeplechase, and I'd take it up another notch because you get really tired, and those hurdles don't move. They're about 200 pounds each, so pretty demanding events, all three.
Yeah, I remember watching Edwin Moses in person one time, and I still marvel at what he was able to accomplish in something like 78 consecutive wins doing that.
Yeah, you don't see that very often anymore. Someone that dominates that much in one event for so long at the very top level.
All right, back to the women again. Good performance in the heptathlon, huh?
You know, I'm probably the worst at patting freshmen on the back, but Emmeline Dearman, that was really a fantastic performance. 4,917 points for her first heptathlon. That's a provisional qualifier. It's a fairly strong provisional qualifier, and many years that would get you into the nationals. Now with our system, we have to wait, to almost the end of the season to find out if that will get her in. That's the second best all time, only behind Boo Rogers at our university. So outstanding performance from her.
Well, you had three other wins: the discus, DeAndrea Blow, and 1,500 Casey Epps, and 5,000 Hannah Gervais. So it appears that they performed pretty well for you.
Yeah, and all the events weren't necessarily really tough, but I was really proud of DeAndrea, for just, she knows the score as she's competing, and she did what it took to win. So, and that was close to an all-time best for her in a dead wind. The wind makes a big difference in the discus, and she had no wind to help her and competed real well. I was proud of her. And Hannah DeVries in the 5,000, I was really proud of her because she isn't known for her kick necessarily, and she locked up with a Central Missouri runner for much of that 5K race, and they were battling it out, and Hannah led the last few laps, but the Central Missouri girl was right on her tail, and Hannah pulled away, which is really impressive to be able to do that. And Casey Epps' big PR in the 1,500 got gapped at the start, but she ran her own race and then was able to stay tough and chase down the Missouri Southern girl and get a big PR for herself.
What was the quality of competition?
It was pretty good. I mean, you had Missouri Southern with most of their best people here. I think they took a couple of longer distance runners to a different meet. Their men and women's teams were both here. Central Missouri, they probably weren't full force. They had some folks do a combined event a couple weeks before that. But really pretty darn good competition. Southwest Baptist brought most of their best people. So a better opener in terms of quality of competition than we're used to.
Did you have a couple of other student athletes that qualified?
Well, we had quite a few provisional qualifiers, mostly in the throws. Yeah, we get on the list, and then, of course, at the end of the year, top 16 go to nationals. And I think our throws probably you see most. I think Garrett Cantrell did a great job. Didn't win the javelin, but a strong provisional and close to a personal best there. And we had some hammer throwers. I think Bo Farrow had a great afternoon, another freshman that did pretty darn well. He got on the provisional qualifying list for both the shot and the discus. So I think we're in pretty good shape for seeing our names on the list anyway. Yeah,
on the men's side, you had 6 individual event winners as well. You mentioned Bo Farrell in the discus at 163.6 and the shot at 54.10 3/4. How difficult is that in those particular events for someone coming from the high school ranks?
Well, it is a change in implement. The shot put gets heavier, goes from 12 pounds to 16. And the discus gets about 30% heavier, about a third heavier as well. And that changes the event a little bit. So Bo comes to us having been coached very well. He's got pretty good technique to start with, so that gives you a chance to make a transition. His big thing is he's got some things to refine in his technique and just get stronger and stronger, and he'll get better over time.
Is it difficult to, those two disciplines, the discus and the shot, maybe throw the hammer in there as well? Do you have athletes to do all three, and how difficult is it to kind of segment your time trying to be successful in all of those?
Well, that is a challenge. We have a pretty good number of throwers, and you only have one person in the circle at one time practicing, so the practices can get a little long and potential distractions. But Coach Mantooth does a great job of keeping everybody on task and allocating his time resources really well in practice, and they've got good unity, and that's really important, I think, for those throwers. So I think we maximize all that.
How about some of the other, Steve Mann for you, Marquise Cushon, James Carter III, and Markel Nickens also came up with wins for you as well.
Yeah, I was pleased with all those guys. Markel's new to our program. He's a good 400 hurdle coming to us from Johnson County Community College. He's getting to be a really good teammate, and he's going to do a lot of good stuff for us. Stephen Mann competed really well. I think he might have done that on one of his last jumps at 23.8 provisional qualifier. And we had some good things happen. There were some challenges though. Marquise did a great job when he got a chance to jump and get a measurement. But if we'd had 9 competitors in there instead of 7, he would have fouled out because his first 3 were foul. So there's some things we need to clean up still. Some mental errors that our men's team particularly made, that if we're going to be the kind of team we want to be by the end of the year, we've got to clean those things up.
So is that like a Carney Smith Stadium rule that you can foul as many as you want? Not necessarily.
No, we didn't get a homer job there. The rule allows that if there are fewer than 8, or fewer than 9, you get to keep jumping 6 jumps, even if you foul the first 3. So we lucked out there.
How good's 48 8 3/4?
That's pretty good. Again, no wind helping these guys. Sometimes you get a little aiding wind, and there wasn't. It's about as good as he jumped indoors. He's trying to get to an 18-step approach, and he was using 16 indoors. It's a little different animal, but it won't get him into nationals. But he's right on the precipice.
I know you touched on this a moment ago, but you had pretty good performance from your javelin throwers, didn't you?
Yeah, they've been chomping at the bit all year. They don't get to compete indoors, and they've been working hard, really. I'm sure over the summer, but certainly since last September. So they were really chomping at the bit, and they had a good performance team-wise.
400-meter relay, you like those relay teams, right?
Really do. Yeah. The 4x100, that's another one of the things we need to clean up a lot. Now, we've got 2 new legs on that relay, and then the other 2 guys are on a different leg than they were, I believe. But so a lot of chemistry we still have to develop, and we didn't have a single good handoff. We had a couple of pretty bad ones. Not atypical the first competition, so we'll clean that up, and we need to get, certainly down in the mid-40 points, have a chance to get into nationals there.
How do you decide what order your runners run in?
Well, in the 4x100, it is pretty important that you assign the leg according to what the strong assets of the individual are. The first leg, you come out of the blocks and you run a return, so you want someone that has a good starter. Second and third legs, you're taking the baton and giving the baton, so you want someone that can handle the stick well. And then your last runner, not always your fastest. A lot of teams just put your fastest runner at the end because it's the end and they cross the finish line. But that's someone that really needs to concentrate under pressure because the staggers are all made up right there, and there's a lot of crowd right there, and you really have to have someone that can concentrate well under pressure.
Any other standouts for you this past weekend?
No, I think, I like Amber Closter. She looks pretty good for this early. She's had some injury situations, but in a 144.5 opener, I was pretty pleased with that. Andrew Rogers, a freshman kid from Copan, Oklahoma. I don't know how many people know where that is even, but he had a nice race in the 1500. 4:03 is not a blazing time, but the way he raced it, fairly patient, and then he took the lead about halfway through and didn't hold the lead, but ran really fast at the end, and then he PR'd an hour or 2 later in the 800. So I was pretty impressed with that.
It's too easy with Google to find Copan and let a logo out by Ram McNally.
Yeah.
Hey, you hold some people out?
We did a few. We've always got some nicks here and there, and some folks not quite ready to compete. And Jess Macy's probably the most obvious, coming off of Nationals where she ran 2 distance races indoors. So we'll open her up this weekend.
What do you got coming up this weekend?
We go to the Emporia State Relays this Saturday. Good competition. It's probably going to be a little bigger meet than ours, a little more depth of quality up there. So it's a natural progression from this week to then.
What do you have coming up this weekend?
We have the Emporia State Relays. We have teams from, I guess we get to see some other teams that we haven't seen from our conference. Haven't seen the list of competitors there, but typically we get teams like Lincoln and some other schools that maybe we haven't seen. And again, just a little more quality there than we see at our home meet that opens up the season, and hopefully we'll have great weather.
Are you trying to win these meets, or are you still in the formative stages of trying to develop your student athletes?
Well, the interesting thing about our sport is we don't build a record. At the college level, you don't see very many scored meets in track and field. So we're really building to the conference championship and also just chasing those qualifying to nationals marks. Those depend on weather and competition, and we'd like to be able to just qualify at the very end of the year when we're in peak shape, but sometimes the weather doesn't cooperate. So, yeah, you're just chasing marks.
That's Pitt State head coach Russ Jewett on this edition of the Pitt State Track and Field Insider Show. PSU athletes in Emporia this Saturday. I'm Tom Van Hoy.